So I'm going to go ahead and we can start recording, I guess.
Go.
We'll call the meeting officially to order. We are going to skip the second item on the agenda, the acceptance of minutes from January 26th and February 23rd.
Recording in progress.
It's okay. So, yes, the meeting has been called to order, and we're skipping the second item on the agenda, the acceptance of the minutes, because we don't have quorum. We will review them again next month, and hopefully we'll have quorum by then. So tonight, we're really starting with the Community Engagement Committee update. So I don't know who was going to speak to that tonight. Is it Effie? Or
I guess. No, Effie says she's not.
Maybe Bill and I were going to
Okay.
share a little bit.
Okay.
I'll give you a context for, Bill and I walk pretty much every week, and Bill put together some ideas that we've been talking about. The main concept is the end result. We would like to get feedback from the committee on this as a concept. Community engagement has always been a challenging part for the Sustainability Committee. The first time Peter Britz and I put up a slideshow on the natural step, we said, okay, if we got everybody in the community to follow the natural step, we'd only have 2% of the population. So the real shift that needs to happen in the next short period of time is to get the community. And so community engagement is top on our mind, many of us as we're going. So how do we do that to accelerate and scale the change that we want? So our suggestion for a plan is to have Portsmouth Climate Action, which is a community organization, synergize with the CAP, with the folks who are putting together the CAP, and all other committees to get a forum that would be ongoing this year and maybe go into the following years. And what it is basically Seacoast Can, which used to be Sea Ray, has 4 or 5 committees. So we're thinking if, starting this year, we had 5 events, like events at the library, that'd be consecutive. And each of the subcommittees on CCAN is relating to the sectors in the Climate Action Plan. So we would like to be able to have the community action support, synergize, educate ourselves and everybody about the plan. So it's kind of an ongoing systems approach that would repeat itself each year. So if the first one, which Bill knows a lot about, is transportation, so we could model what would transportation look like if there was a program at the library that supported the plan. And so that's kind of the gist of it. And Bill will go on, and if you want to.
Sure, just a little bit.
Yeah.
In addition, I mean, we're thinking we would call these community conversations, so very, very informal. And they should be relevant and supportive and complementary of the community engagement that the consultant's doing for the CAP. So make sure not to be duplicative. We like the word complementary in content and in timing. I think because the transportation is 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions typically and shows up in every best practice CAP that we've looked at, that's sort of a predictable good one, and because we've done a lot of work on that already, as a pilot maybe, and try that out and see how it might be adapted for other topics that could be the ones that align with the Sea Ray or the Seacoast Can working groups or not. I mean, the other ones that are likely would be things like buildings and energy and maybe waste and recycling, compost, food, to see if there's an interest in doing those. But these would be very low-key, informal conversations. I think we would want to make sure to coordinate with Peter and Kate and the consultant for the CAP to make sure that there's a way that this sort of blends in and is helpful in terms of their program timeline and timing. And I think very important to this is this concept of community of practice. I mean, transportation is what I do, but it's something that people get very interested in. I mean, it's not difficult to get people to show up and take lots of different sides and debate transportation, but I think what's really key is relating it to climate and get the transportation interested parts of the public to be thinking in terms of, well, what are the sources from transportation of greenhouse gas emissions, and what are the changes that might contribute to a ambitious cap target that could be included in the cap. So a chance for educating, involving, getting one part of the community, whether it's energy, buildings, transportation, food, thinking about the cap, getting interested in it, contributing to the development with input. I know the consultant is charged with community engagement, and I know that the budget is tight for that, and Peter and Kate and this group have made very clear that there's a value in volunteer activity and getting some groups engaged. In this particular one, the transportation and climate, if that is a pilot that we do, I think we would like to do it with Portsmouth Smart Growth. So it would be a combination really co-hosted by Portsmouth Climate Action / TCAG and Portsmouth Smart Growth, and do it sometime that's useful for the CAP. We like the idea of community of practice, and if this goes well, then maybe these are folks that have an interest in the CAP development, but maybe after the CAP is done in the implementation. So it's a group that then becomes advocates for whatever the transportation-related actions are that are in the CAP. So we wanted to get some input and feedback from this group on that and see if it looks like this is heading in a good direction, and maybe fine-tune some sort of short concept for this.
Are there any thoughts?
I think it's a great idea to start. I mean, it's something we've talked about a bit, is to start a reoccurring program with themes that are very relevant to people here in this community. And it serves multiple purposes, but ultimately people will show up to the library because they're topics that impact their lives, that make a difference. So I think from a community engagement perspective, it's a great idea.
Just to add to that, I really like the idea of engaging with Portsmouth Smart Growth, because pre-COVID, they would have recurring forums. I don't know if it was twice a year or quarterly, and I think they've only done one since COVID began, and that was for the community power plan. So we just partnered with them. If they were open to that, I think that would be
They are. One of the TCAG members is a Portsmouth Smart Growth Board member, and has queried the other board members, and has, I guess, 4 of the ones he's talked to are interested in it. I mean, they've been relatively quiet, so I think they see this as a chance maybe to get re-energized. And I think the fact that there's a CAP being developed by the city adds some importance, other than just coming up and talking about your transportation ideas. It's the CAP.
Effie has
Oh, Effie?
Thanks. Last night when we talked about this, I said, I think that our CAP addresses not just mitigation, but adaptation and resilience. Am I right, Kate?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So I think it's important. I looked at the Concord, Massachusetts Climate Action Plan, and they had a section, I forget what the topic was called, but it was something like natural resources, environment. and another topic, resilience and adaptation. So I think it's important to include those categories, especially it's related to mitigation, but it's more about people seeing these changes nationally with extreme weather and public health things coming up like asthma and new diseases because of the changing climate. So I think it's really important, especially being a seacoast town, to address adaptation and the environment generally.
And I think when we talked about it last night, I said that of all the sectors, it fits in as relevant for transportation in terms of infrastructure and bridges, roads, flooding, emergency evacuation. So at least with transportation, that could be a part of it, but it seems like that could also be a topic all by itself.
I think we had hands over here first.
Yeah, I like this idea. My only thought in it, though, is that, I've been to a number of things that, like Portsmouth Action Committee or C-Ray have done in the past, and I think they have a way of preaching to the choir. Most of the people that are going to come out to an in-person event are already interested, they're already engaged, so you kind of get a lot of the same faces, and I think our bigger challenge is how do we reach all those people who are not those people? Everybody who's beyond that and 2 or 3 stages back. And I can't say that I have a solution to throw out there, but I think that that's something that we really need to wrestle with. That's where I think that, like the app that I think you're going to be talking about, the Right Power, things like that might be that thing that can get us into that next level. Like I'm trying to learn Spanish now, or relearn Spanish, to take a trip, and I'm doing this little Duolingo app, and it's addicting. I'm literally in there when I should be asleep, playing around with this thing, and oh my God, I can get more points if I do another lesson. And like some way to that to really kind of engage people in a fun way that kind of sucks them in and gets beyond our own
The Bright
insular
Action
group.
definitely does that, but I think in organizing this, we would want to really coordinate carefully with the community engagement consultant on the CAP to get their ideas both on how to organize it so it has its greatest use. Are there surveys or questions they would like to ask? Would they like to be on the program as well? So it wouldn't be a city-run activity. It would be this volunteer PCA and Portsmouth Smart Growth. But it's a good point, and that's maybe something where the consultant will have some good ideas.
Chess.
I had a thought very similar to that of a lot of times, depending on how you're advertising, you might be preaching to the choir or people that are already trying to do their something for impact themselves. And so it's a question of how do you get people outside of the community that's already trying to get involved.
Yep.
And one thing that at least I've found talking with people outside of sustainability or that are new to it, greenhouse gas emissions is something that they can't really tangibly see, but they can see like plastic in the ocean, so people attach to that. So thinking through what are the different tangible areas that people can see and really hook into, and whether it's weather, whether it is sea levels rising, and think about what communities are impacted by that. So let's think of sea level. Maybe there's part of the historic society that with sea level rising is going to impact homes. How can you get those people involved? Or maybe it's something with the weather and it's the surf community. But surf community probably wants the weather for bigger waves. But just thinking about how the different, because it's when something's an externality, a lot of times people go, well, yeah, I know it's an issue, but they don't do anything. But when it actually comes back and impacts them in different areas, which it's impacting all of people in different areas, how can you think about the way that the different communities are going to get impacted and the groups that they're parts of?
This is a very out of left field idea, but between me mentioning the last Portsmouth Smart Growth event being at 3S, and then Audrey speaking, made me think of getting a band to show up, because different people show up to see music, and there are a bunch of local bands who might be interested. Now that would obviously require money to pay the band, but you would get a different crowd to go see the band, and then if you stick around, you'd learn something, like maybe pitch something at the beginning, have the band play, maybe people stick around. So.
That's, I was going to suggest, I'll just add to that, I was going to suggest that maybe partnering with some of the event venues in town to having a pre-show or a post-show discussion for anything that's already planned that we're going to have an audience for that maybe wouldn't normally show up. I think it's logical, right? You're going to get completely different thoughts from that group.
Well, several thoughts. The whole preaching to the choir, those of you who have run for office know that it is the person-to-person communications that really make a difference. And talk as we may about good marketing and good signage.
Sorry to interrupt everybody. Is there a Charles Sullivan?
That's me.
Your Jeep's rolling down the hill.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, no.
Jeez.
Well, that's good to know.
This is Carl.
Most excitement in 10 years.
No.
He usually has an e-scooter, so I don't know, he must have alternative vehicles tonight.
Oh, no.
So it really comes down to whether those of us who think this is a good idea are ready to individually invite people, and invite people that we might not otherwise talk to. Conservatives, for example. With regard to the program itself, I like Josh's idea of a band. I think that's great. At the end. Or maybe a little bit at the beginning, but then get down to it. And I also like small groups, so that people don't come in and go to watch a movie or watch television. To have people engaged and looking at the question on the docket. And certainly transportation is a great one. Transportation in many respects is the most thorny of the topics. And so small groups.
I think that what Bert and I think, in PCA have been thinking about is small, informal community conversations, because we probably don't have the resources or the wherewithal to do something more ambitious, but it seems like a lot of these ideas maybe are relevant to the community engagement consultant, but granted, they probably have a very limited budget as well. So some of these things would need to be sort of turbocharging that if there's an interest.
So are you thinking smart growth event? Is everybody familiar with the smart growth events where they bring in a speaker?
It would be a
fill up
partnership between Portsmouth Climate Action and
But that's
Portsmouth
not, it
Smart
wasn't
Growth.
organizationally. I'm structurally. Is it filling up 3S Art Space?
No, I think we're
Or are we
thinking of,
talking house parties?
no, we're thinking of something like filling up the Levinson room at the library, which is probably like 50 to 80 people in small groups talking about ideas, and very much focusing on the cap, which is what is Portsmouth's transportation carbon footprint now? I mean, that's, I think, something that's a starting point and will be part of the analysis that the consultant's doing. And where are the possibilities for change? With transportation, it's fairly straightforward where the possibilities are. It's just getting the interest to make changes.
It's always the will.
Yeah.
Speaking as a citizen coming to all this, where can I find the cap or whatever
It's
is?
being created as we speak.
It's a work in progress. Work in progress.
There's a consultant that's been hired.
Yeah, I know that. I know that, but in my gut, a contract was created, and the contract defines what's going to happen. And there are possibilities and opportunities all along the way. If we're committed to community involvement, then it has to start right now, not when it gets formulated. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Item 5
And
on
I
the
don't-
agenda today.
What's that?
Item 5 on the agenda
All right.
today.
Well, and there's a section already on the website about it,
On the city website?
on the city website, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it.
Were you here last month where the consultant, they
No, I was
came
sick
in
last
and they
month.
presented the whole plan?
I know.
From,
And I didn't
like-
watch the whole
Yeah.
video. I read the notes. I thought they were great notes.
So I think, Wes, to build on what you're saying, and we don't need to wait for the cap. That's the intent why we've been meeting. We're now in our 77th week of meeting weekly with Portsmouth Climate Action, and we talk about it. It has, the community of practice is something that is ongoing, and that we are many people doing many things, and that's why we're starting to put this out now, for exactly what you said. We can't wait for something and we are in such a complex environment. I was giving a course in Israel, and I was trying to say, there is the drawdown. Dr. Foley was saying, now let's do it. And I said, what is it? And then he showed this huge chart, which was all sustainability. Well, the reason we can't do it so easily, one, it is invisible. Greenhouse gases are invisible, so we don't see them. That's one difficulty. The second thing is, we can't do one thing without affecting everything else. And third, the most difficult thing, from my perspective, is to get people to work together and synergize rather than spend their energy in that. So that's why we're putting this out now. How can we make sure that this plan is communicated where we don't have vested interest? I think all of us need to be not attached to our plan. However, we do need to be highly conscious of the time commitment. One other quote was from Anthony Guterres. We're on thin ice in terms of climate, if the people heard that. And thin ice is now, instead of going down, we're continuing to go up. The ice is getting thinner. That means we have less time. So how do we carry that in a spirit of goodwill and work together? And I will wind up by a positive thing, that we had handprints at the parties at the library. And we drew people there. And some of them were really good. But one of the best ones was Skip the Straw. And why does Skip the Straw make a difference? We had 30, 40 people from there. From the outcome of that alone, one woman called up and she said, I own a store here, I'm doing it. And there was maybe 5 or 6 people who did things. So I think we're right, all of us. How do we get to the biggest audience? How do we get hooks that bring people in? If it's, my grandson went to a bike rodeo for Sabre. Anyway, I'm just happy that we're talking about it, and the main thing that we want to do tonight is see, do people want to continue as a committee, at least if we're here, to continue this dialogue to bring to the consultants. That's kind of the outcome that we want to just get people's feedback.
Yeah, I mean, is this something we should continue to formulate? And I think very soon we should touch base with the consultant to make sure that this is a useful undertaking.
I just don't want to get too much into the CAP update, but I like the idea of ongoing meetings, and not even just this year, but next year, because one of the drawbacks with the consultant is that we really get 3 major workshops with them, and then, they have the plan and they're done, and it's on us to really continue the conversation. But something that Peter and I are putting into planning right now for early April, and hopefully it'll be a regular bi-weekly or monthly thing, is first we're going to have a meeting for organizing volunteers and breaking them out into categories of how they can reach wider audiences, and do categories like who can table, who can focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, who can go to certain events, things like that. So I think once we get out and get volunteers organized, it'll be really helpful to have community conversations that can reach those volunteers and further educate them and get them more involved, and then we can bounce back and forth on how to further do outreach, but I think hitting the ground running is something that we desperately need to get into. So Peter and I are hoping to start like 2 weeks from now and really get the ball rolling on that. But I really do like that ongoing piece. I think that's going to be really important.
Just to build on that, if you get those volunteers, this is where I see a synergy. Where do you, so if there's something existing, they could kind of
Build on it. Yeah.
build on and do that. So would it be helpful to have a meeting, when are you meeting, or do you need any more input from, to synergize with this plan or not?
I think definitely. I think Peter and I were hoping to have this volunteer organizational meeting scheduled for the second week of April. But something that we really need help with is brainstorming who to reach out to, how to reach out to people to get them to come to this organizational meeting, but also what are the different categories that we want people to focus on? How can we break people out into groups? And we want to try to figure that out beforehand, so we're not sort of going in blind and having people show up and saying, hey, I'll do tabling events, but we really want to put people who are good at what they do in the right spots to be able to succeed in all different aspects. So if we could have some sort of sit down with people who are interested in helping to lead the volunteers with Peter and I and our consultant, that would be great within the next 2-3 weeks. Just a little spitball meeting, maybe.
When are you, and where's Peter tonight? I know he's gone.
Peter's on vacation until
Yes.
next Wednesday. He'll
He
be
has
back.
his nerve.
I know.
All this urgency, and he's gone.
It is his birthday on Monday, or Sunday.
Sunday, all right, well, that's all right.
It's
And that's
allowed.
okay that he wouldn't. If he didn't have his birthday, would. All right. So when he gets back, why don't you,
I can send out something to schedule. I don't know who's interested, but we can do that through email if anyone would like.
Sorry, what is the actual commitment? Is it 3 times for?
So the
afternoon?
consultant is planning 3 separate workshops.
Right.
So the first one will be May 4th, and that will be getting community members together and to sort of learn what community members' interests in, adaptation and resiliency projects would be, like what their concerns are for the city, just to sort of gain a portfolio on what they should be working on for different projects that they should put in the cap. So that's going to be a big sort of community outreach thing. And to get people to that first workshop, Peter and I want to set up a regular meeting of volunteers that are able to go out into the community and talk about just, not only just the climate action plan, but also talk about the events that are happening. So make sure that they know about the May 4th workshop, that we have a climate action plan and consultants, and that they're going to events that we're, helping to table at or running, and things like that. So
Okay.
getting the volunteers organized will be a feat in its own, but that's what we need help with. Volunteers to help volunteers. Yeah.
And you're sending all of us a note about that?
I can indeed. That will be tomorrow's job. Yes.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah.
Other thoughts? Yes.
This is
May 4th.
another
Go ahead.
idea out of left field, but Wes had mentioned opposing sides, which got me thinking, and again, Aubrey made me think this because of music. One thing which didn't happen due to the pandemic is Tristan was texting me the other day from the press room. He was going to have a Hug It Out event once a month where he'd have people from opposing sides just kind of have their argument, but hug it out, so that you could probably enroll him, and he has a much wider audience than I think anyone else here has.
Yes, Wes?
2 things, actually. One is we here as Citizens Climate Lobby has done a lot of work in creating dialogue and having small groups and people of opposing views and very different views find common ground, which hopefully these kinds of events would do and would facilitate. Secondly, I'm sitting here with the question of what are the intended outcomes from these? And what I've heard is a better understanding of what's going on with the cap. But I think there are bigger opportunities. I think there's potentially an opportunity for people to walk away with greater insight and possibilities of how they might shift their own lives with regard to transportation.
Well, that's where Bright Action comes in. We want to, that's where individuals can go on and actually take actions. The end result of any of this is that the culture changes in the way we live and behave in relationship to the environment. Is there, Jess has her
Jess has
hand
her-
up, I think.
Jess.
Well, I would just want to add the piece that I hope as we progress with these events and, you know, maybe once they're fine-tuned and things, that we can consider, sort of to Josh's point, but a little more broadly, taking the show on the road a little bit. Kind of to your point, you know, the people who are connected to the library and engaged in the library might be a bit of the kind of preaching to the choir, so I would hope that we would try to go to some of the areas in the community where they might not be able to access the library so easily, or they might not have the time to attend an event on 5 o'clock on a, you know, a Thursday or whatever, so that we consider that we are really reaching our entire community as we're trying to do these outreach efforts, and it's really engaging everybody.
Just to build on your idea and to connect it to volunteers. If people came to a mobility presentation, some of the volunteers were there and said their job was to take it to the high school, take it to the Meadows, so that it would now be synergistic that they would come. They don't have to create it. There might be already a program, and that's how we would connect. So they don't have to create it, you don't have to create, and then we're helping each other, everybody in that way. So that's the kind of thing, if we didn't have this discussion, I wouldn't have even thought about that. But that's what I think is, yes, there's 90 people come to the Foreign Affairs for 8 weeks at the library. And it's a great group of people, and they'll have a lot of influence. Now, if we had 10 of those who were volunteers who said, yes, I will take it to my church, I will take it here, I will take it there, that could be a very useful contact. And we've had a long tradition with Portsmouth Listens. Before the pandemic, we were doing a inclusion dialogue, and we were in the 4th week of it, and then we stopped halfway through. So Portsmouth Listen, if that were, I don't know, that kind of what you're saying, Wes, that brought people together and really tried to get
Yes.
dialogue. So we have a big tradition here, and how can we utilize all that?
Aubrey?
I had a thought that essentially was Wes's thought, in a sense, in that I think he brings up a really good point about, like, when you were campaigning and Josh was campaigning, and I even helped my friend Cliff when he campaigned, you know, going door to door, meeting people, handing a flyer, saying your pitch, and then moving to the next house. That's a lot of work to do. There's, I don't know how many, 5,000, 10,000 houses in Portsmouth or residences. There's a lot. But if there was enough of a people, I'm thinking like Eco Club, be great to tap into that, where even if, you know, my thought is kind of like, okay, like there's a major thing coming up, May 4th, might be too soon, but like, okay, we're having this event, we want to get a bunch of people there for the official action plan. If like on a Saturday, a bunch of people can go out, and even if you hit like every 3rd or 4th house, engage with people, hand them a little flyer that it's happening and a QR code that they can scan for more information. If they can't go, and hey, would you mind just handing these to your 2 neighbors? And then you go to the next 3rd house over, because we can't hit everybody. Some kind of thing like that might get into the broader community that just is not paying attention at all.
I think you're right, and you have an expert canvasser right here,
Yeah.
and Josh Denton. He's really good at it.
On that bike.
Use him as a consultant if you can convince him.
I'm sitting behind your computer, too.
I'm not as good as Josh. Josh is really good. But the other thing that maybe is worth considering is reaching out to the neighborhood associations, because then they have their own email lists of all the neighbors. And
there are a lot.
And there are a lot of organizations. It's a really great way to reach out to a large number of people who don't necessarily subscribe to the city newsletter. And you can also ask the neighborhood associations if they have anyone who's interested in helping out, getting the word out. Something I had told Peter, it would be interesting to have kind of little climate discussions on the side of National Night Out, because all the neighbors, kind of gather in the community in various places. And so it's, if you had a group at each National Night Out that was there willing, even have with a table at each one to discuss the climate action plan. That isn't until the first Tuesday in August, but still, we're still engaging people, I think, at that stage. So it's an opportunity to reach a larger group of people. And there are other events throughout the year because of the 400 that give you other opportunities to engage that maybe are atypical. There should probably be a booth at Pro Portsmouth's Market Square Day this year, maybe even at Children's Day, which is coming up really, really soon. All of those kind of community events that occur. It's one more chance.
Seems like all of these things are going to be essential if at the end of the day, the community is going to feel an ownership of the CAP and then a commitment to implement the CAP. I mean, it's probably every idea that's been put forward is probably is necessary, like in all of the above strategy. And I think that the coordination with the consultant is going to be important because they've got limited hours, but I think it's all these other ideas and the volunteers and the engagement is what is going to be essential if the thing's going to succeed.
Definitely, and I just want to follow up on that point about the events, is that we do have a running list currently with our consultant that if anyone would like to add to, please send me an email of different events. So like the Earth Day stuff, we have Market Square Day, Chowder Fest, Chili Fest, the electric vehicle event, which is going to be in the fall, but still might be a tabling event. And farmers markets, we're hoping to have a booth every Saturday at the farmers market that we can have a couple people volunteer it. Hopefully not me every Saturday, but a couple people along with me. But thinking of those events and where we can reach the most people is exactly what we're trying to figure out now and get on the ball so we can start planning it and making sure we have people set to do that. And then the consultant will make all the materials that we can bring to those events. So like workshops in a box is what we originally planned, but they're going to help us make flyers, handouts. They're going to be doing QR codes for us and updating the website for us and giving us different links to hand out to people and just good handouts, I guess. So that is great stuff to be on top of. So if anybody has any other ideas for events, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Two things. One, I didn't intend that we'd go door to door like campaigning so much. What I was trying to get across is that, as my friend Carol Hollis says, there are people out there just waiting to be asked. All they need is for us to open our mouths and start a conversation with them about climate action, and they're interested. Secondly, I really like the neighborhood idea, and I like the notion of networking with various organizations. One of the things I've found to be really helpful is to put together the communication for them to give to their people. The flyer is all teed up. It's really simple for them. All they have to do is cut and paste and drop it into their email.
Yeah. That's why I thought about that, because I'm on the board for my neighborhood association, and we won't advertise for any for-profit or anything like. But if it's a city event, we'll gladly circulate something, or if it's a city-related program. So it makes sense to me that this would happen across the city, and we have a huge email list.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Is there like a database of all the city neighborhood committees?
The
citywide
contact for that is Citywide Neighborhood Committee, has all those contacts. And, another opportunity maybe is at the Senior Center. The Senior Center has regular ongoing programming. That's another demographic we could hit by having, maybe a monthly session at the Senior Center to talk about where we are and status, and you might get a different group. And also the rec department has a great list of people that take part in rec programs, so that might be another avenue of reaching out. I don't know how thrilled they would be about, but it's worth trying.
Yeah.
I think also we talked about through the schools too, is that, it's part of the curriculum, teaching kids about, the environment and climate action and, so maybe we give the kids, like, you're talking about like a, 1 page or something. I know we don't want to print off too much paper, but maybe it's just a QR code. They go home, they talk to their parents about, hey, this is what I learned today in school. And hey, the teacher said there's this QR code you can scan if you want more information, right? I mean, but that's just one of many of what we're talking about, right? There's all these different demographics out there, and there's different communications channels to reach all these different people. We got to get creative.
Yeah. Maybe this group should also share information with the school board, too. That might be worthwhile, or having the Portsmouth Climate Solutions Group share information, more information, come in and do a presentation for a school board. That might be another way to get. There's so many people that would probably reach out to other people. So, any other thoughts on this? No.
I think we like it, Bert and Bill.
Okay. Then I guess we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. The next item is standing committee versus blue ribbon committee discussion. So, do you want me to introduce that one? I can do that. Okay.
I've thought about it, but please do.
I raised this issue actually at the last meeting, and part of the reason I raised this committee is because, or this discussion is because I chair the governance committee, and we've done this thorough review of committees this year, and the last part of our review was looking at different categories of committees, so that people can better understand our committee structure in the city. And when I had the list of blue ribbon committees, there were about 4 on the list that have existed for over 10 years. And the question was, are these really blue ribbon committees? Because a blue ribbon committee is supposed to be a committee that is given a very specific task in a discrete time frame to achieve that task, and appointed by the mayor or approved by the council, but that serves kind of the term of a council, and then maybe if their work is still ongoing, they don't complete their task, it kind of extends over into the next council period. So clearly this committee's work is much more long-term than kind of a standard blue ribbon committee task. And the committee's been around for a long time. So the question was, does it even fit the parameters anymore of a blue ribbon committee, and should it be instead of standing committee? And the governance committee had discussed approaching these individual committees that are in this position and saying, hey, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself going? So that's why I raised the issue.
Having been on this committee for 7 of the past 9 years, I've thought since I first got on it, this should be a standing committee versus a blue ribbon committee, especially now that there's more members attending and we could actually do something significant, which would be overseeing the implementation of the cap, not implementing it ourselves, actually having a group. And with the standing committee, you could have things written into it, like one member will be from the conservation committee, one member will be from so on and so forth, and school board, eco club. And I think it would give us more credibility and more, I don't want to say structure, but in a good way. Like, if the meetings would be to an end and we would have a set objective, but the ordinance could always be changed to tweak whatever that objective is. But I think it would make sense, and that would be the right time to move forward. But it is a lengthy process to do that. And even if, say, we put our ideas together, I'll gladly draft an ordinance. We could bring it to the governance committee, kick it around, bring it back here, and even to get to the governance committee, it'd go in front of the city council, and then if it was to be adopted, it would require at least 3 readings. So it's a very, very long process. I think it's worth starting now versus starting in the summer. We're like, wait a minute, a bunch of us might not be in the council by the time this gets adopted. So.
Thoughts?
I've thought about it quite a bit. yes. And I'd weighed both sides. And where I'm coming down is we can't be business as usual. With Peter taking the new title of sustainability planning, that's already changed the whole context of where we were, in a sense. Because Peter has the big picture on sustainability, as he's been on this committee for years. I think with the people on the screen and those of us here, there is more on the ground connectivity to real life action that's taking place. It used to be we'd come in and a lot of people were here, but we didn't have as much, the times weren't as urgent. So I'm thinking with the urgency, there's a couple of things that I was hesitant to do. Is to give up the informality of the committee. However, Josh, I really like it if you have to write it up, and with the two of you, knowing what the culture is. I think one of the reasons the committee has lasted for the way and the length of time and the joy it's given to the people who've been on the committee is that there's a culture that we've established. And I don't know if that's, I think it's certainly what I enjoy doing, the check-in question. How many other committees in the city have it?
None that I'm on, but I'm only on 6. So.
Yeah. So what I'm aware of, we've developed a culture which forms relationship comes first. The individuals come first. And as we get to know each other, we get to know our strengths and also the areas where we could use some development. So I see the committee, if we could build that in, I don't know, because I don't know the mechanics, but if you, I'll just put it out as a question. It's hard to write in the less tangible things, but there are things like rotating chairperson, person taking minutes, check-in question, check-out question, and those can be really deadly if people are doing them in the wrong spirit. So I'm aware that you don't build that and then say, oh God, do we have to go through that again? So that was what I was fearful of losing. And I would say we would want to become a committee because we're that significant to the running of our culture and our society now. And I would like us, as it's written, we could build that in. That would be my take.
Yes.
I really like that, Bert. And as I think about it, I start getting excited. It's like a transformed committee. Instead of a regulatory committee, it's a promotional committee. It's a kind of cheerleading the community for getting to be sustainable and resilient. And I don't know of a lot of precedent for that. But for Portsmouth to generate such a committee is really exciting.
I think Peter wanted to say a few things about this, but he's not here tonight, so he just wanted everyone to know that he doesn't feel a particular way about this discussion, but he did want people to know that there were some cons associated with becoming a standing committee, and that we wouldn't be able to have as large of a member group, because currently we're at 19,
Right.
and there's a cap for standing committees, I believe.
Yeah. No, cemetery committee's 18, so,
yeah.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. It's not,
Peter and I will have to look that up again. But also, he felt that the Blue Ribbon provided a lot of flexibility with how often we can meet and who we're allowed to invite, and people on the committee do not necessarily have to live in Portsmouth, which is a requirement for other standing committees. So I think you want people to know that. And also, if we did decide to vote to be a standing committee, he had a methodology of how that would happen, along with writing a letter, but also having the chairperson approach the mayor first and laying out exactly the plan and getting the mayor's support before we write anything up, I think was his suggestion.
If it helps, I think the mayor's probably already there.
Probably on board.
Yeah.
I think he suggested it one time when he was here,
Yes,
as a matter of fact.
How
Yes.
convenient.
yeah. So that's positive. I have that question too. How many people are not residents of Portsmouth that are here?
I don't
Okay.
take offense, though.
Okay, it's okay.
We don't take
A
offense.
few
to you
members
being
of
here.
the Eco Club
Club are not members.
are not.
No,
are-
we could get around that for
Yeah.
the Eco Club. You could say people in the school system.
Right.
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 It's the same with the Economic Development Commission. So the Chamber of Commerce represents the Chamber of Commerce. So isn't necessarily a resident, but there's a representative. It's a discussion I've actually been having because I'm working with arts and nonprofits as well. And there's a discussion there around having a more permanent arts committee. But most of the organizations, their CEOs don't live in the city. Because frankly, artists rarely can afford to live in Portsmouth anymore, which is really unfortunate. So it's about giving organizational memberships versus individual memberships. And that's how you manage that, if the organization is in Portsmouth. So Eco Club's in Portsmouth. So that's how you kind of address that, I think. But I don't know if we have other members. Does anyone know if we have any actual members right now that are
Our
not
membership
residents?
list has addresses on it.
On the website, I believe.
Yeah.
Does it?
So that would immediately tell us, even if somebody's not here present tonight, if we have anybody that's not in Portsmouth, because I think we have an address for everybody.
I think so.
I thought there may have been one, but I don't think there was, if that.
Okay.
I
Outside
can't
of
even remember
Portsmouth.
specifically, yeah.
Okay.
Truth in advertising, I'm not actually a member of the committee.
Yes. Yeah, you're not on the list. Yeah.
Well, and that's something else you could write into the ordinance, is that the committee welcomes participation
Yeah.
from, with welcome participation of community members. So it's usually standard practice in following Robert's rules is that you have, the committee discusses, and then you have a public comment period where, the public comes and comments. But you could say in the ordinance that this committee has a different structure, that they welcome community participation in the discussion of the committee.
Even like to piggyback on that,
Yeah.
Chaz, you gave that great presentation a couple meetings ago. I mean, we don't want to lose that, right? The ability for people like Chaz to come in here and,
Or TCAG.
oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah, and TCAG too, right? Exactly.
If it helps at all, I actually invite people all the time to the governance committee to present. So I think that that's standard in most committees, is that if you have somebody who you want to come in and present, you can invite them to come in and present.
And
Is there a charter or a statement of purpose or some kind of structure for other standing committees in the city? Oh,
Yes, the administrative ordinance for the city, that's chapter 1 of the administrative ordinance, outlines the structure of all of our standing committees. So they're all different. So if it helps at all to know, they're all very different. And in fact, the cemetery committee was really unusual. They were set up just a year and a half ago, and they were set up almost like a blue ribbon committee in the sense that all their members got reappointed every 2 years with the new council. And they had 18 members. They actually just came back to us and asked for a change, and they want to reduce their membership so that they can meet quorum, because they never can get quorum, so they can never make decisions, which would be maybe the case for us tonight. But that's not going to eliminate participation. They envision that the other 5 members will still show up, but they won't have to show up to actually do business as a committee. So quorum rules, though, are the same, whether or not you're a blue ribbon committee or a standing committee. It's just they wanted a smaller number than they have, so they came back for that change.
Is it possible that a draft of what this would look like could be given to this group, like, for the next meeting? So that by the time it gets into the formal process, we've given it some thought and.
Yes, I can do. And as far as the size goes,
Or you've given it some thought?
I think, let's say there's 18 people currently on the committee, the ordinance could actually be written in a way where, like, the current members become members, but then it will shrink when members leave. So there's different ways to craft it. So if 18's unwieldy, we want to get down to 12. It could be, hey, new people won't be appointed. Now granted, there will be terms, but normally people are reappointed if they want to be. But then that would just be a natural downsizing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because we would still have public participation and everything else. It would just keep it more in line versus some larger committees like the cemetery was.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have ordinance language that sunsets. You can also have, we actually have language in the cemetery committee change that is before the council right now, that basically says it's anticipated that as soon as this passes, the mayor will reappoint everyone that's on this committee currently. So that it doesn't alter the current makeup of the committee. That's part of the vote too, is that the mayor's going to do that. So, so you can provide instruction outside of just the ordinance or how you want it handled.
Yeah,
as
am
well.
I correct that if there is a standing committee and the new turnover of counselors, the committee remains?
Correct.
And it's only the blue ribbon committees that the mayor appoints to? How does somebody get on? Just say we want to have somebody new. What is the typical process for somebody, Bill wants to come on now, say, how would that happen?
It's the same process as a blue ribbon committee. The mayor appoints, the council approves. The difference is that blue ribbon committees all sunset at the end of a council term. So all the members have to be reappointed at the beginning of every new council term. Whereas when you have a standing committee, people have defined terms. Like you could choose how long, what are the length of terms you want? Do you want 2-year terms, 3-year terms, 4-year terms for your committee? And those individuals are appointed on a rotating basis. You try to set up kind of a rotation so that you only are like if you have 3-year terms, a third of the committee gets reappointed each year. And then the mayor would make those reappointments. So it's the same process. That's the one thing that this committee has a kind of a really unusual structure for the rest of the city. This committee has been operating under kind of a rule that people just get appointed, and then they kind of never get reappointed. And they're just, which is fantastic. And has been, but I think that that's going to end because it'll end this year because what we're trying to do is normalize the rules around what standing committees are and what blue ribbon committees are. So it makes sense not just to the residents but to the legal department because right now this is one of those committees that's really far off.
We've never been reappointed, so
Yeah.
we don't really exist.
Right. It's yeah. We're just operating here. So,
So knowing that we don't currently have quorum, is there a point in making a motion to initiate this process? Or is this something we just put on to take a vote to see if we want to do it? I mean, is there any opposed to? I feel like we're kind of all leaning in that direction. But I don't know, but
What I hear is Josh is going to put out a potential draft.
I guess I'm guys, do we need a motion or
We-
something
we-
like that?
Oh, yeah.
There was a motion just for a draft to be brought back to the next meeting. That would definitely help. But it's not necessary because it's
Right.
a blue ribbon committee.
yeah.
But I think,
Well,
Steve, the point you're making is there consensus Are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
looking for-
Is the,
yeah.
are we going? Or, yes.
Yeah.
Have we decided?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to make that motion. Well, okay, so I'm looking for a motion to come back at the next meeting with a draft to establish a standing committee for sustainability.
I will make that motion.
But to your point, if we don't have a quorum, can we even do that?
We can vote, but it won't be reflected in minutes. I mean, it can be noted in the notes from
It reflects
the
the
meeting, but it's not,
consensus of the room.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Second? Is this a second? All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed?
3 on there, just so you know.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I do have just a few more questions before we move on, if I can.
Please.
For Josh, to help Josh with drafting, are there any particular organizations you want represented on this committee besides Eco Club that you want to have a seat at the table?
Like,
Well, school board and DPW.
Yeah, school board. And what we do with the city usually is we say the city manager will have a representative on the committee, and the city manager gets to assign who that is. And we could say 2 if we want to, and that would be fine.
I'm just showing up.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like the rest of, Brian, you're like the rest of us. We're not appointed, we all just show
He's
up.
all just here.
Wander in and
Oh, that's right. Nobody's been,
Jess?
so I can vote.
Wasn't Bex on 2 committees when she was here? And I think John Kennedy has sort of potentially taken that role. I can't remember what other committee she was on, but that seemed to work well to have someone present from here.
Okay.
Does anybody remember that?
I didn't hear what you said.
What other committee Bex was on? That was sort of like when I was starting,
was-
but
yeah.
I know that a lot of people in this group talked
Portsmouth.
about that. It was helpful to have her
From
present.
Energy
Becca
Advisory.
O'Brien was on the
Energy Advisory Committee?
Energy Advisory Committee, which
Yeah.
is also a blue ribbon committee.
Oh, okay.
So she was
Yeah.
just doing both because she was interested in both, and this was less formal than that committee is.
Got
It
it.
was just, hey, I want to be on both.
Got it.
But it's a thought to think, do we need a Portsmouth Energy Advisory rep?
This is a nonprofit, but one thing that was, that became apparent is everyone is some form of a tinkerer with saving extra lumber in their basements and trying to figure out what to do with it. The Port City Makerspace would be a good one to have involved, which is right behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
I
have a
was thinking of
suggestion?
the Smart Growth Group, but I don't think I'd write it into the ordinance.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm like, is there anyone that what is the successor to group to Siri?
Oh,
CCAN.
Seacoast can.
Seacoast, CAN, Seacoast Climate Action Now.
So I had a question around that. Does it make sense to have a representative?
You already have several people.
I know, I know, but it gives them an opportunity to have somebody who maybe isn't a resident.
Well,
that-
here's what I'm finding, and this is what's so tricky. We've had people from the school board who really dug their teeth in and
Yeah.
done things. And looking at where the next 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years are going, I'm trying to think, who are the people at the table? Like, Brian, you come in because you're interested and you have passion for the content and you're working on it. Friend, and this is why I wish Peter were here and you. From the city's point of view, if this committee is going to get traction with the city and the climate action, I think we want to take a systems look and see, we have 2 counselors. This has never happened. But we're really in unusual times. And so we're talking, let's get, if people are going to give up their time, the reason I say Seacoast can, most of the organizations I know are fighting to keep people involved and to have a clear mission of what they can do. These are places that have been going for years. And in some way, we can give each other that synergy. So I ask you the question, I'd ask Josh, I'd ask Brian, from a city point of view, if we really want to get the city on board to get traction and get input from the community, and from the community, we want this to be pretty high level functioning if we can get it. And so that it has people who are coming together who have their fingers in a lot of areas where they have influence. Anyway, so I'm just, that's what came to mind. I don't have any ideas, but that's what I'm thinking.
Right. So,
Is Peter and/or Kate Planning Committee automatic, or does that have to be specified as well?
It's normally the city manager gets to have a representative
yeah,
Okay.
of the committee.
yeah.
And that raises another question. Peter has now a lot on his plate, and he's been put in a position where I don't think he's ever trained to be an administrator, but he has a lot of skills in that. And so do you know his intent about the committee? Has he, I wish you were here tonight so we
No.
Yeah, I think he's pretty well committed to staying with this group and the Conservation Commission from what he's said so far, which are his two big responsibilities. But just talking about reaching different city connections, I think also we've been doing a lot of back and forth with the library. I know Jess has too. And they have a large influence and they have a lot of connections. I don't know if we can, how complicated it might be to have multiple city department roles tied into this committee, but I think
Yeah.
that would lend a pretty big hand.
Yes, you can request a library representative. It might end up being somebody who's on the library board of trustees, but it's still, you can have that conversation. Because we do have committees that have a library representative. So it's possible. Yeah.
Bert, what did you say the M stood for in the Seacoast Climate Action? Now, okay, that works.
Yeah, they put that on there because they wanted people,
Yeah.
it was originally pecan, and I thought that was a nut. Pecan, Portsmouth, the climate action. No.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've worked with a number of groups over the years, and it's really a good idea not to restrict yourself in these kind of governance provisions for one of these and one from here and one from here. And then it's up to the chair and then the mayor and the city council whether to approve people. But, you know, running the group, if we saw we were missing someone with an environmental background, maybe we would look on the Conservation Commission and find someone or something. But to require all these positions really is restrictive, and it's very difficult because, as I'm sorry, someone was saying, I couldn't make out who it was, maybe it was Bert, it's hard to get people to serve. So I just feel like it's good to have a couple of these positions required, but not too many.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, my question is really to the tune of like, do we want to include a seat for anyone, any organization in particular that maybe wouldn't be represented because they don't have a Portsmouth resident representing?
My priority is them.
So we'll make sure we'll include Eco
My
Club.
priority is them, Eco Club. I would want to make sure that students are always here and part of this regardless of
They're
whether
so young.
they're Portsmouth residents.
My question is, do we have 3 or 4 seats?
We have 3 currently.
Okay.
I think that works.
What
That
we
works,
originally
okay.
said we'd have 2, and then what we said, we always want a feeder group. And here's what, basically, when that was brought up, it was, how can we do the best mentorship for you guys so that we're giving you the skills that you need? And this is a good thing. So we wouldn't want to place a number on it, so 3 or 4, but they can show up anyway. That's the kind of informality that we've done. Am I accurate?
We would need to specify how many members in a standing committee ordinance, so.
But they had a representative, but if 3 or 4 of them came,
No, they could still come.
that's what I meant.
Like, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it
But
wouldn't
you'd
matter.
have like 3 that are officially on the committee.
Right, and
Right.
that could easily switch over as people graduate.
Right.
It would
And
just be 3 spots for the
Yeah.
eco.
exactly.
Can it switch over month to month, just like 3 representatives from Eco Club without being specifically,
I mean,
guess,
technically,
approved members?
technically it can, but preferably it wouldn't.
You want
I guess is you want some continuity, but the EDC example is there's the Chamber of Commerce seat, right? So, somebody, different people can come to represent the chamber. It's usually been, though, so.
From a,
How about, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if this is sort of the question you were asking, but so when we have those 3 seats, like, they don't have to apply each of them individually or
No.
do that? No, so it's just understood that we
Yeah.
have 3. Okay.
We would have to define that in the ordinance. We need to be really clear.
Right.
Because what happens with, what happens with the general ordinance is it'll say one person from this department or one, if we want to specify where the city department folks are coming from, usually we try to leave that to the city manager to make that call. But we do have ordinance that specifies. And in this case, you'd want to make sure it says 3 members from the high school Eco Club. And in that case, you'd want to say to be appointed by the Eco Club. And so it's clear the mayor's not making those appointments. You know,
Okay,
Yeah.
2 questions about the students. One, I've seen a number of committees that have, I guess, alternate members that only are voting members if other people aren't there or something. Could something similar be with the Eco Club? Like there's 3 standing members and then they have 3 alternate members, and those could be lower division class people that are kind of training to be the full members or
You
something
can.
like that they can fill those seats?
yeah, it's just however you write it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did they get to be full voting members in a standing committee or not?
Yes,
Good.
yes, yes. That's a great thing. Yes, Wes.
Are there any members of this committee who are health professionals? Bring the whole perspective of health.
You know, I have my doctorate degree in physical therapy, if that counts.
Right.
It's
Yes.
not a medical degree. I mean,
No,
it's
it's
not like a
fine.
doctor or nurse, but it's in healthcare.
It's interesting.
Okay.
No.
And I was thinking, people at risk are people on the seacoast. And we might think about how to have somebody from the seacoast involved. And I like the list of areas that Bill enumerated, starting with transportation and buildings and going down to waste, treatment of waste.
You say
Just-
people on the seacoast. Portsmouth is the
Seashore.
seashore. Okay. But then how do you qualify that?
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't,
idea.
I- we're at a time of throwing out ideas. And people on Surrey Street, their businesses are at risk.
Right,
We have a good solid storm. Surrey Street is underwater.
right.
Anybody who is on, well, I guess Portsmouth per se doesn't have a lot of real seashore frontage. It begins in Rye.
I live on the North Mill Pond, so and
Yeah,
that's
you're
why
pretty
I was,
safe.
That's why I was. Yeah, I'm safe on the North Mill Pond.
We get a lot of high tides, though.
Yeah, I've seen a few
Yeah.
coming right up in the neighborhood, and so that's why I
Yeah.
was asking. I mean,
Yeah.
do we?
Good. Good, you answered that.
Yeah.
The way you usually handle that is if you feel like you're missing like a skill set or a certain type of person, the committee, and you've got room on the committee, like you've got a few spots open, is the committee tries to recruit people and ask them to apply for a role.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have that issue with open spots.
I don't think so either.
And I think, well, not immediately. No. So, if it's okay with everyone, I think we need to move on to get to the next few topics. And so, if everyone's happy, we'll go ahead and move to,
I just want to clarify, because I'm trying to take the notes and got a little lost. Is there anybody besides Eco Club that we definitively decided we want to be seats on the committee, other than city representative and city councilors?
School board?
there is a school board seat currently.
There is a school board seat currently. Is that something that we decided we want to keep?
I think we could put it in the draft ordinance. I mean, then we could play around with the draft ordinance next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
Just wanted to
probably a
make sure I captured
conversation.
Everything.
Yeah, we don't have to
Yeah.
finalize all the details
Right.
No.
right
Okay.
now.
Right, and we can ask the school board if they want, I think that's an important,
Yeah.
like, we don't want to make them unhappy. So, with that, let's move on to the CAP update.
Okay, I'll make this really brief, and then I'll send details about the volunteer event in an email tomorrow or Monday, but, so the consultant, we were gonna try to get them to come here tonight, but they were not able to. So they gave me a little bulleted list of stuff that they've been working on and we've been working on with them. So I'll breeze through that. So we're working on the project website. We have a page in the planning department webpage online if you go through there. It may not be live yet. We still have to get it approved, I think. But it'll be on the plans and reports tab. And we're also gonna work on linking it to the city homepage and the sustainability page, which I will be updating soon. And so we have a sort of a project description up there right now, and we're gonna be adding photos and graphics. And so we're sort of, as we get updates and we have different events, we'll be posting those, and we'll be posting updates and what the consultant's working on currently, things like that. So it's sort of like the go-to page for QR codes that automatically link that to everything that you can sort of click on to get to other places. Let's see, and the consultant also has given us sort of a narrative that we are going to be attaching to all of the boards and committees in the city and the departments to send around in the month of April for an update, and it'll specifically ask them to start thinking about climate action and what they do in their daily lives, but also day-to-day in their work and with their boards and commissions, ask them to start thinking about climate action and resilience and what they do. And it's also a plug for the meeting in May, which is workshop number 1. So hopefully we can get department representatives there and also board and committee representatives there as well. So that will be going out soon. We have an outreach plan drafted, and that is what Peter and I are working on with the consultant, and also a representative from the library, Sarah Cornell, is reaching out to a lot of groups. So that's going to hit the ground running with this volunteer workshop that we're getting together that I'll email more about. A crosswalk analysis of local and regional plans is underway, should be complete early in April, and that will help identify big goals and targets and strategies for consideration in Portsmouth that we'll bring to the May 4th meeting as well to sort of further sort of narrow what the community wants to see happen. And then the first workshop is in May. It'll be May 4th in the City Council chambers from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. We're hoping to get a big crowd, but also have some whiteboards and make it interactive so we can have people get up, walk around, go into big breakout groups, and sort of brainstorm from there, and have someone taking minutes, probably a consultant, that'll be note-taking and making sure we get everything. And we have a brand name for the project that the city manager approved last week called Portsmouth's Climate Future. So that'll be the branding that you see on a lot of the flyers and on the website as well.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. And I think that is it for now, but as I said, I'll send out an update tomorrow too.
When was that
Solicit
date? What was
volunteers.
the date in the council room?
So it's May 4th from
May 4th.
6:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Okay, do you know what day of the week that is? I could easily check.
It's a Thursday.
Is it a
Thursday.
Thursday?
Thursday.
Yeah.
I think,
I'm
yeah.
putting it in my calendar right now.
we're sort of coming into the theme of picking all Thursdays because it's sustainability committee days. So we're doing 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. But I think we might have to, for some of the volunteer workshops, we might have to pull that a little bit earlier, or maybe make it even longer, like 5:30 to 8:30, 5:30 to 9. We're still trying to figure that out. What's kind of a good time for people, and what day of the week for people that aren't just us. So that's what we're working on.
Portsmouth Climate
Portsmouth's Climate Future.
Future, the future.
It went through a lot of iterations.
Right, got
Um,
it. Portsmouth Climate Future.
Do you have a logo for that?
Not yet, but we're working on it. It's coming.
So when is the volunteer training that you need people for?
So we're thinking it'll be the second week of April. We have talked to someone in the library, and we're thinking April 13th tentatively. We're
Okay.
not sure what time yet, but it'll be at night. Whether that's 5:30 or 6:30, we're not sure yet, but that's what we're trying to hold. And we couldn't get the Levinson room,
Okay.
so we'll be doing the Hilton Garden Inn room, which is upstairs, which has a maximum of 20 people, but they said we can go over if we want, so.
We've gone up to 35 in there, I think.
Oh, perfect, okay. Hopefully we get that many people, but,
They were all friends.
yeah, that's the plan.
And give us again our orders on that, what we're supposed to do to support you for that.
So the plan for that is to get everyone who's interested in volunteering to come April 13th with ideas for any events, and we'll bring out our ideas and categories for volunteering that we want to see happen. But we want everyone to come with an idea of what they can do, of what they want to do, what they're capable, who they're capable of reaching out to. So our categories right now for volunteers are people who will do outreach specifically for workshop number 1, people who will reach out to businesses around the city and drop off flyers that we'll create for you, things like that. So we're hoping we can have businesses put up flyers that say, this business believes in Portsmouth's climate future, or something like that, something that will go along with the branding. We'll have a category of volunteers that are specifically doing social media. So we do have a social media person in the city. His name is Monty, and he's going to be helping us with connecting to different city accounts. But I think it'll be really important to get the neighborhood accounts. So
Okay.
every neighborhood has their own Facebook page, reaching out to the Eco Club kids, all the high school students, things like that. And then we're looking for a group that'll do diversity, equity, inclusion outreach, and who specifically has background in that. And then also a group that's willing to table at events like farmers markets, Market Square Day, Children's Day, things like that. Yep. Effie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what time is the event on April 13th?
So we're thinking sometime at night. We haven't decided yet, but likely
Okay.
5:30 to 7:30 or 6:30 to 8:30. We're not quite sure how long we'll need yet.
Sure.
But we'll finalize that all and
Okay.
send it out soon. Yep.
Okay.
Is that also Thursday?
Yes. Yeah.
Easy.
We were thinking Tuesday, then Peter's like, well, I gotta do Thursday. So we're sticking with Thursdays.
April 13th is the day of the climate summit at UNH.
Oh.
All of us have signed up for.
Okay. How do we
Isn't it,
feel about
Lauralee?
Tuesday
Do you
the
have that
11th?
date?
Sorry?
I was asking Lauralee. I'm pretty sure it's that date, April 13th, by Degrees
Yeah.
Climate Summit.
And it's at night too?
Yep.
Yeah. it
Yes,
starts at
6 o'clock.
8, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, keep that date in the back of your mind, but very far back. We'll rethink. We just chose it the other day, but I think we also had April 11th open just in case. But I'll send out the details when that's finalized.
Okay. So maybe the 11th. Okay.
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, okay. I'll have to rethink that. Yep, so the idea for that is just come ready to figure out what you want to volunteer for and come ready with ideas for volunteering as well. And we're going to try to not just reach out to, like I said, this group, but we're going to try to get all the boards involved as well, see if anyone from the city staff would like to come and volunteer. We're going to try to reach out via social media to advertise about the volunteer workshop, and then flyers around town, so like flyers in the library, flyers in businesses downtown, things like that, just trying to figure out how we can get word of mouth out to get volunteers. It's going to be fun. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, that's the CAP update for now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get to this next topic because it's a really important one. 'Cause we started it last time, and I want to have a little bit more discussion around it. The next item on the agenda is the Head Start ideas on climate action. So I want to see where we are on the Head Start ideas. I know that we got some input.
What that's about, please.
Steve, do you want to take that?
Sure.
Okay.
Very briefly, looking at climate plans around the country, pick out certain patterns. So what I basically presented to the committee was that, a lot of the stuff is not a great big mystery. We know a lot of the actions that are going to appear in the climate action plan. So what can we do to help the council, help the city get a head start and not sit around and wait for it to be handed to us when we already know a lot of what's going to be in it? So
this is not the pre-kindergarten program.
Right, yeah. So I guess we were looking for suggestions.
It's a great idea.
And let me pull on that thread a little bit farther. So like TCAG, I think TCAG is a perfect example,
Yeah.
maybe, of what, right? So, the TCAG group's been doing some great work, and the path you're headed down, this is based on science, it's based on so much work that's been done.
Best practices.
Best practices. And so we're not waiting for the cap. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And I've had conversations with Peter and Brian. I've been meaning to get together with you. I've had some conversations with Peter about doing more solar on city property.
Yeah, so
And
we're
so
just thinking
I
about
do need to
specific.
get together with you. I wanted to talk some
Specific
more.
asks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this TCAG, do they have okay, what's their wish list? What are their top 3 things that they want the council to do right now?
We've got, we did our write-up by topics, and we've got 5 topics, and each of the topics ends with a preferred top priority strategy and then other strategies. Now, whether any of those are low-hanging fruit, probably there are some, or at least variations on those that might be low-hanging fruit, and I could probably think of a few off the top of my head, but a lot of the other things take longer-term commitments. Certainly on the walking, biking as an example, we have a excellent city walking, biking plan with prioritization, and one of our recommendations was to update that again. But really, almost all of those take some kind of investment and some kind of time. Things like safe routes to schools could be an initiative. The transit benefits program, where businesses can take tax deductions for giving transit passes to their employees, and there's even some provisions for benefits to employees for biking. Those are things that are really low-cost sorts of things. It wouldn't be for the city, for their employees if they added it, but for any if you did an outreach, let's say, to Ps and employers to do that, because I think it's pretty unusual in Portsmouth, but is part of the tax code. All those are things that lead to reducing trips and vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gases. So it does lend itself, it's nice and specific, just like solar would be specific. Some things that are city things, some things business things, some things community things.
Okay.
So how do we track, I don't know if people know that I've been having conversations with, I started out talking to Peter about wind, but I've shifted to solar. And so we've had a number of conversations, not only about pushing it or to do more on city property, but also to maybe put together an outreach program for businesses within Portsmouth. It seems like there should be some way that we start tracking some of these initiatives that are ultimately supporting the cap, that are being driven by people on this committee, are being driven by people on PCA and other groups too, so that we have complete visibility to all these different actions that are going on.
These sorts of things could be included in these community conversations. So it's not only what are your ideas for the cap, What are some immediate changes with greenhouse gas? Because all of these are in the bright action. Let's say the shift to transit or replace one trip a week by walking or biking. You can actually see what your greenhouse gas reductions would be for doing that, and that will include a range of different sorts of things. Some that could be considered low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I always think about is community-wide composting pickup. And while that would be a long process to develop at the city, if the city's going to pick up, but maybe there's a way to find, work with Mr. Fox, for example, right, to set up kind of neighborhood demand for composting. So what I had told someone is if you had enough people who wanted it and were requesting it in a particular neighborhood, maybe you could get Mr. Fox then to do pickup in that neighborhood once a week. So it's about creating the demand, the commercial demand, rather than providing the service at the city. Mm-hmm.
So, I told you I was gonna come with a wish list.
Yep.
So I'll try and blast through it. And so what I did is I tried to use those categories that I talked about last time that they found. And I also kept in mind your advice that maybe things that don't cost money right off the bat would be good. So, okay, so the first thing, renewable energy, that was one of the categories. I would ask that we would look into potential new locations for projects for solar. 3 locations that have always kind of been on the back of my mind, and these are just examples, would be like the Jones Ave. Are we doing anything there? DPW facility has a big rooftop. Can anything be done there? I do remember us talking about photovoltaics at one point at the Bellamy Reservoir. These are just 3 examples. Are there any municipal incentives we can do for solar? That might be a tax thing, so that might cost money.
So to be clear, when you're talking about locations, that would just be like putting forward the work now to just identify locations, getting ready for a future
Feasibility,
thing?
yeah, that's not
Okay.
gonna cost any money to
Feasibility.
think about, look into it, like, get the ball rolling, like,
That's the path I'm going down.
yeah.
It's in
Yeah, yeah.
process. I've got a dialogue going with the city of Beverly, Massachusetts, which is, they're in the middle of doing some fantastic stuff. They're putting solar everywhere, over parking lots, on all their
Right, right.
buildings and fields. They're doing a lot of stuff. Yep.
So the next category was buildings. So, and these are just, my ideas, I'm just spitballing here, but I just had, how about require new construction or renovations to meet much higher standards of efficiency than we currently do? Require renovation of city buildings to meet much higher standards of efficiency than they might be meeting right now. And I've heard of some places out, maybe it's California, possibly even requiring energy audits before a home is sold, so that the buyer knows what they're getting into. The next category was vehicles. Instruct city departments to come up with a plan to electrify their fleets, including plans for on-site charging. And having, as far as the city concerns, maybe develop our charging. So we've talked about developing charging infrastructure around the city. Maybe sort of formalize that plan a little bit better than sort of like, oh, we can do this here, maybe we can do this here, and have it reflect the needs of what the usage would be, rather than, I know we had this conversation about everybody thinks about vehicle charging and they want the fast chargers right off the bat. And we've seen that that's sometimes just not the most feasible thing. So sort of tighten up that strategy. Waste operations, I have advocate for EPR legislation. Look into the feasibility of curbside composting.
What was that first one you just said?
Feasibility of extended producer responsibility legislation.
A bottle bill? Do you consider a bottle bill in there?
Yes, I guess a bottle bill would be EPR, but I'm thinking like
I know,
further
thinking
than that even.
beyond
But yeah,
that,
yeah. Yeah, bottle bills, that's it, that's EPR for sure. And I almost hesitate to mention things like multi-stream recycling or pay-as-you-throw, because I fear for the person who brings that up in a council meeting. It'll be the end of their council career, I'm sure. So, approach that one at your own peril. And under public transportation, I just wrote engage with TCAG because they've done all the work already. But two other things that weren't necessarily in those 5 categories, and this was taken from Drawdown, actually. I think one of their top things that they mentioned was refrigerant management could have a huge impact on climate change, and maybe the city should come up with a plan to address that, reclamation and leakage. And maybe the most important, is there some way that we could incorporate, maybe not mandate, but if we want to be an eco-municipality, I think everything that the city does should, at some level, take into consideration sustainability of what we're doing at all levels, whether it's the budget, whether it's zoning, whether it's, whatever. Is there some way to incorporate that at a high level so all city decisions are kind of looking at that as a category of their concern?
Yep.
I think that's kind of the
that's
goal
my
of the
wish
cap,
list.
right?
Everything, everywhere. Yeah,
One of the goals of the CAP.
Okay, yeah.
Is creating that framework.
yeah. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Is that thought?
Yeah,
That's exactly the thought. This is a great list. I think I can report back that there's a green buildings group that is currently working on a few of these things. So that should help, like the new standards for renovations, working with we've been working with our chief building inspector on changing standards and possibly putting in place new green building standards. So we've already been doing that and working on city policy around city buildings. So, and not just city buildings, but any kind of capital project the city does. So, and Aubrey was there this afternoon at a meeting with me, where
We're
we were
working on that
discussing.
part of it.
Yeah, so there is, some of that is actually happening, which is good.
Right.
And I'll be really brief because we're running low on time, but over the past 9 years, I've pushed to varying degrees of success things like pay-as-you-throw, keep bringing up multi-stream recycling, curbside composting. That actually was very successful when I pushed that initiative. Ended up in the $10 rebate for everyone who had Mr. Fox, was expanded their clientele by 50% when that existed. And the Jones Ave, I'm guilty of not remembering the exact outcome, but there was a prior study done saying there shouldn't be solar. I brought it forward maybe 10 years later saying, hey, we should look back at this. I think the outcome was, yes, we can do solar on Jones Ave. So it's all been brought forward over the past couple of years.
Which is great. Yeah.
And I would, the point of refrigerant management is very important, and it's very regulated. Like, anybody who's dealing with that stuff, there's very strict things that they have to do. If you decommission a system, you have to capture all the refrigerant that's in there. How well that's done varies from tech to tech, but that is something that's very highly regulated already. And I don't think the city would really be able to add anything to that locally.
The city's got a great program, right, with, sorry, Brian, I point to you. The city has a great program. I've dropped off a mini fridge, and you pay $10 or whatever it is, but at least you know that they're going to hopefully properly dispose of it.
Right.
Which is really good. So, I don't know if those types of things, if that's what you were thinking, or you're thinking more.
There's also concerns about like existing installations of like natural gas lines that, for homes that have natural gas. Is there leakage in those lines?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. There's been studies that have shown that those lines are they just leak all all over the
It's,
place.
I mean, it's scary. I saw an article about that, so I know what you're saying. I didn't realize those natural gas lines leak as much as they do.
Yeah. These are things I don't want to think about, but it's pretty awful. Does anyone else want to share, or do we want to hurry up? We've hit our time frame, so I want to give you guys a heads up.
Can we go back to, I mean, I know I said this earlier. I love what you brought up here. But it just seems like we should have, I mean, there should be some sort of like running list of, these are the activities, and then people can report out on them periodically, so that, we all know what's transpiring.
It also seems like all this is good input for the CAP, because
Yeah.
it's sort of like things that are, maybe have a high potential of advancing and maybe have some momentum.
And then also for subcommittees too. So we could say, like, I just was really interested in doing more solar in the city, so I've been talking to Peter about it. But that doesn't mean like, are other people interested in it too? And, that's great. I'd love to work with other people on that too.
Well, and that's a discussion that Green Buildings Subcommittee's having as well. So it'd be great to like make sure that everybody's aware of all the groups and what they're talking about too, I think, because I think some of these things aren't being addressed, right? So maybe we should make a list and put this list out
Well,
and let
I'll-
people claim it,
I'll
right?
Share my list, I'll email the group or whatever. But I guess, maybe the point of it is, so, I mean, this is just a wish list that I made up. So some of it's being acted on, maybe some of it's not. So then you can look at it and say, okay, well, maybe we should do something about this. Do we need a subcommittee to look into that, or do we
Yeah.
need, so I just wanted to kind of put it all out there
Yeah.
and see what sticks, I guess, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really helpful, actually.
One additional idea, instead of paying per what you throw away, Germany did the exact opposite, and people really liked it. It was called the P Fund, and whenever you buy a beer, for instance, there's a 25-cent core charge, and it was automatically added to your tab. And then whenever you brought the bottles back and exchanged them for new ones, you'd get money back, or you just leave your bottles next to the recycling, and random people would collect them and bring the whole thing down and deposit it. So it was adding an additional fee on top of the beer or glass bottles so that you'd return it. So it was incentivizing in the opposite way.
Right.
Yeah. Just, it worked really well throughout Germany. I mean, everyone recycles their glass.
How is that different from the bottle bill that Jessica was bringing up?
Refresh my memory.
So you pay a deposit?
Yeah. Okay.
Initially when you buy the bottle, and then when you return the bottle.
Which is
it
every
gets
other state in New England.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
all the states around us do, except for New
okay.
Hampshire, yeah.
Okay.
Specifically though, so I guess getting back to, I know we're over time, but EPR, extended producer, is the idea that like a manufacturer
Yeah,
is
he's
responsible
talking
for
about
their
something
product
much bigger.
from birth, cradle to grave,
Yeah.
and back, and recycling. So it puts the cost on them, as
Right.
opposed to the consumer to clean up
Right.
afterwards, yeah.
Yeah.
And gives them incentive to make it recyclable as possible.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I would add textile recycling to that. I've heard there's some companies out there that are working with municipalities, and they will bring dumpsters and even rent the space to have the dumpster there and collect textiles that can't have another life, and then they take them, and I don't know all the details, so I don't know what they get recycled into, but that might be a consideration, since a lot of people mention clothing that,
Yeah.
is holy, that you can't
Absolutely.
really, seamstress, you don't really know what to do with it anymore, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
Shred it up
that would
and
be
turn
worth
it into
looking
insulation.
For sure.
Yeah.
Insulation.
I did just have a thought, based on what Herb was saying, to the refrigerant stuff, because where I work, my mind was really focused on like HVAC, refrigerant, grocery store type things, not like your refrigerator that you need to get rid of. And by the city having a cost to do that, that's a disincentive to do the right thing.
Yep.
That's like, oh, I'm not gonna bring it to the city, I'm gonna throw it in this dumpster behind, the grocery store, so I don't have to pay that fee. And then it just gets crushed and it gets into the atmosphere, and there you go. Maybe that's a simple thing that the city can do, is get rid of that disincentive by saying, yes, please bring us these things, and we'll dispose of them properly. I mean, there's a cost to that, but it's probably,
We have Household Hazardous Waste Day, which is very popular to 2 times a year. It's free, but people have to line up and come. So, I mean, you could have a similar, I guess, bring your refrigerator day.
But I mean, you collect refrigerant type stuff at the transfer yard anytime it's open. But those hazardous waste days are very specific, like paints and thinners and stuff like
I
that,
was
right?
just thinking of that's something similar. I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose we could charge $25 to bring your household hazardous waste. But we don't.
Right.
And that's actually a state program, which is kind of ironic. We get some money from the state to run
It's a
that
great program.
Right. There might be a way to also, there has to be a program around latex paint too, which is, I think latex paint is one of the challenges that people deal with, because in order to get rid of it, you have to dry it out to throw it away. You're not allowed to, you can't just throw it away if it's liquid, right? And there's no one that collects it regionally. Believe me, I've looked, because I inherited several shelves of paint when I bought my house. And the disincentive there is that it takes a long time. It's hard to do. It's hard to dry out a full can of paint. And so people do things like pour it down the drain at their homes. I know that you hate hearing this. But so, maybe expanding our programming to include other types of waste, things that we don't want to end up in our water system, for example. So that's also a consideration, right? Is there anything else that people want to add?
Oh, yes, sorry, I know we're over. I just want to give a quick update on Bright Action.
That's what yeah.
Yes, so Bright Action, at the beginning of this week, we got all the materials that they needed. There was content, there was pictures, there was all sorts of stuff. We got all the details to them beginning of this week. It's probably going to take them about a week or so, and then they'll have the site set up, and then we'll want to do a soft launch. So like people on this committee and, others, we'll give folks a URL to go out there, and we'll have a feedback period so we can kick the tires, and then obviously we want to coordinate with others from a community engagement perspective to decide when we want to launch the thing, right? So when we want to launch the site, but there's no reason why we won't right away do a soft launch and really get familiar with it and understand what it can and can't do, its strengths, its weaknesses, and all of that. So just want to let people know it's exciting. It's right around the corner, and you'll be able to get your hands on it very soon.
Okay.
Quick question about that. So I think a while back, when after you first saw that, I went to see what it was all about. I made an account.
Yeah.
If you already have an account, will you just be sort of joined onto that page, or
We probably can.
or migrate, or just make a new
because
account?
I'm in that boat too. There's a number of us that are in that boat that have exactly as you do have an account. And
Yep.
so it's funny you bring that up, because I just thought about that yesterday. I was thinking, we're going to have to, associate people that are already
So
registered.
so there's a few people in that boat. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions? Nope. Great. Okay. Thank you.
The last thing on the agenda is a reminder of upcoming Earth Day events, and I believe Portsmouth Climate Action is managing a lot of those.
Yeah.
Jess, do you want to give us an update?
Yeah, so I will try to be brief because we won't see you again as a group before then. So our Earth Day kickoff event is April 21st, which is the day before Earth Day, from 4 to 7. It's at the Connie Bean Center. We have about 30 groups that have agreed to participate at this point, including nonprofits, city organizations, citizen-led action efforts. The vision is really to be a event where education is the focus, so that we can invite the community to come learn and see how they can get involved and take action, because our vision is that Earth Day will actually be a day of action, and you'll be out doing something to commit to being a little more sustainable, whether that's formally doing a beach cleanup, or that's you donate to one of these organizations, or you start a compost pile, or you just commit to taking some action to be a little more sustainable. We will have, the juicery has donated 900 Healthy Bites snacks, so we'll have limited snacks as well. We're working on potentially music. There will be, part of our request to the participants is that there'll be activities for people of all ages. So we hopefully should have some activities and different things to get people to engage. Part of it is also the consultant will be there, so hopefully they can start to get some feedback from the community about priorities around climate action and those pieces. I think those are the highlights of the day before. Then on Earth Day, there are a few specific events happening. The Conservation Commission is leading a trail stewardship where they're gonna do some maintenance and care for some of the public trails. They haven't figured out where, but it might be like the Little Harbor Loop or, I don't know, I think they talked about Sagamore Highlands or something, so they're kind of still figuring that out. There'll be a cleanup out on Pierce Island, and Evie is coordinating a massive cleanup effort. I'll let her tell you about that.
Yes, so an effort to try and involve the entire school district, not just the high school and the members of the Eco Club. We've set up cleanups around the 42 different neighborhoods in Portsmouth, and so an Eco Club member or Portsmouth High School student will meet a group of elementary school students in their own neighborhood in hopes to promote environmental stewardship, where they can clean up the trash they see along the road and just kind of learn how that affects the environment and what they can be doing to help. And then middle school students, also led by high school students, will be starting the cleanup process of their different various sports fields, something that connects more to middle schoolers, and also just kind of getting any other city project done that might be needed. And then at the end, everyone will come together with all the trash that's been collected in a spot that we haven't determined yet. And kind of the mayor has agreed to come and speak there to kind of just bring everyone collectively together at the end of the day. So
Evie, is there still no homework that weekend? per the
there is
school
still
board?
no homework that weekend.
Just making sure.
Okay. Okay. That's great. With that, I think we want to take a final round the room takeaways for tonight.
I'll go. I noticed that this committee's function was to be high level, always thinking that we're such a small committee. And what I saw tonight, we did high level thinking, we've done process thinking, we've done structural thinking, and we've got down to cleaning up the elementary schools. So we're working up and down the levels and everything, everywhere, all the time.
We might have lost some Zoom people, but
did.
I'll just say,
No, we're still here.
oh, still got you on. Woo! I'll just say, all of this is very exciting, and April is going to be a very busy month for us. But I think there's going to be a lot of great things to do, and I'm excited for the volunteers. I think with us alone, it'll be great, but with how many more people we can connect to, I'm really excited. So it's looking good.
Actually, I'm going to go to John before we go to Josh, just so that we can include you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Yeah, a lot of good stuff tonight, and looking forward, actually, Kate, to getting engaged with the consultants and finding out what they're looking for and see how we can get, continue to keep the people in this room engaged in that process.
Recording stopped.
Great.
I'm looking forward to working on a draft